100% academics is important, Todd, but it's so important to build that love of literacy. And to me, as an assistant principal, it looks like when we're in Read Across America Week, I'm taking full advantage and I'm dressing up as Fancy Nancy, Thelma the Unicorn, and I'm trying to build that love of literacy in our little scholars.
Welcome to TESA Talk, the podcast where leaders inspire, share, and grow together. TESA is dedicated to celebrating the incredible work happening in education. Each episode, we dive into meaningful conversations with leaders, change-makers, and innovators who are shaping the future of our schools. Whether you're looking for fresh ideas, encouragement, or a little spark to fuel your passion, TESA Talk is here for you. Imagine tuning in to hear how leaders are revolutionizing their schools, tackling challenges head-on, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Grab a coffee, hit play, and let's grow together. Welcome to TESA Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TESA Talk podcast. I'm your host, Todd Nesloney, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled each week to bring you different leaders from around the world, and today we have another one of our fellow Texan leaders. We've got Crystal on with us. Crystal, go ahead and tell everybody who you are.
Todd, I just want to first say from the bottom of my heart, I'm so thankful for this opportunity. But my name is Crystal Salom, and I'm the proud assistant principal at Glencove Elementary, an A-rated campus in the Isleta Independent School District. And I'm also humbled to say that I was this year's Region 19 Assistant Principal of the Year.
Awesome. I'm going to want to dive into that for sure. But I want to first start with you and kind of your path in education. And so at some point, obviously, while you were in the classroom teaching, either someone came to you or you had this idea of, you know what, leadership in these other roles might be something I'm kind of good at or that I like. And so what was that journey like for you?
So I first want to say that my path started actually when I was a third grade student and I didn't know how to read. And I had this amazing third grade teacher that gave me that strong foundation. I think I was just one of those students that fell through the cracks. And her name is Belinda Hinojosa. I have to give her the honor and the recognition that she deserves. But she planted that seed in my heart to want to become an educator myself one day. And I started off as a third grade teacher, actually a pre-K-8, and then a third grade teacher at a low-performing school. And we had central office there all the time, Todd. They were in our PLCs. They were in our classrooms giving constructive feedback. So I had no other way to learn but the right way. And in essence, it helped my journey so much. It helped me become a curriculum writer for the district. And I was going on my fourth year teaching. So I went from third, and I remember going to my assistant principal at the time and saying, Miss Young's, like, I'm having these kids that are coming in with all these gaps. Like, please move me to kinder. And I promise you, they'll leave my class reading.
Yeah.
And she gave me that opportunity, and I'm so thankful for it. And, but I was going on my fourth year teaching kinder, and I was going to do a blog, a Teachers Pay Teachers, and then my position got cut. God had different plans for me, and they were like, you can stay in fourth or you can go to another campus and do second. Well, my heart's early childhood, so I took the second grade at another campus. Todd, I remember driving to work crying sometimes, like, God, like, why did you move me schools? Like, why did you move me, like, grades? I loved kinder.
Yeah.
But he had bigger plans than I had for myself. And at the end, close to the end of that year, which I ended up loving second grade, by the way. But at the end of that year, someone from Central was doing rounds looking at guided reading at the time. And they were like, you're very good at teaching kids to read. And I was like, yes, that's my passion. And they were like, do you want to apply for a dyslexia reading interventionist position in the summer? And I applied, and I got a position, which is funny because it's at the current campus I'm at now, Glencove. And then I ran across another amazing mentor, the principal, Margie Mendoza, and she really fostered my love of reading. And she took me to my first ever reading convention. And I remember, so this was 10, 15 years ago. So really the gurus at that time of reading were Fontes and Pinnell and John Richardson. And so Todd, I remember, funny story, I remember meeting them for the first time. And I told them, I was like, everybody is so excited to meet like Beyonce and Taylor Swift. I was like, I'm so excited to meet you.
Yeah.
And they were really the ones that first opened my eyes to to reading, to teaching kids to read. And then my position, again, I got comfortable and my position got cut. And I think if I hadn't moved, Todd, I to another campus, I would have never been able to come back as the assistant principal because
Right.
it's rare that you get that position,
Yeah.
that promotion from within the same campus.
Yeah,
So
and I love this journey though because I think it shows two things. Number one, I gotta say I love that you started as an instructional aide because that's how I started my career, and that was so formative into me and the teacher and the leader that I became was starting in those positions that are so important for a classroom and for a school success, but are often overlooked. But I
yes,
love that you have been through so much change, and that even though you even expressed, a lot of it was uncomfortable and a lot of it was unexpected. I love that your perspective now is I can see how it led me to exactly where I'm meant to be right now, and how I'm only loving what I do right now because of those experiences that led here. Would you agree with that?
100%. We had to let go of a teacher last year because of our numbers. And I shared my story. I was able to connect with her and share my story with her. And I was able to tell her, you know what, the one piece of advice I can give you is grow where you are planted. Like God has a bigger plan for you, and you're going to be that change maker no matter where you go.
Yeah, I love that advice. Well, I know at some point though too, in addition to all the things that you're doing, also came up the opportunity to be more involved with TEPSA as a region leader. And so how did you decide that like, oh my goodness, this is going to be one more thing I'll just add to my plate without feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm already overwhelmed. Like how do you balance all that?
You know what? I'm going to be very honest. This is my fifth year as an assistant principal, and I was not a good juggler the first 2 years. So I think that it takes time, but I'm that person that thrives and likes to be involved and a part of something. And I've really felt that TEPSA, one, I'm either going to events and I'm learning something, or two, it's reassuring that the systems that we have in place at our campus and what we're doing is working and we're on the right track. I mean, our data shows it too. But I just love that community and also making those connections with other educators. I think that's important to always continue to grow in whatever field you're at. And I think, going back to reading, it's so important that if you're in the world of education, you need to like change. You can't be in education. Education's always going to be evolving, and you have to roll with that and know, okay, the data is now showing this, so we're going to make that change to best fit the needs of our kids.
And I love that you say that because it's so true. Sometimes we can get into this mindset of, oh my gosh, like I got to do this now. I got to change to this. And it's like, but that's literally the definition of our career. Like all we do is
Yes.
learn and change and grow. Like if you're not ready for that, you might need to look into something else because it's not going to change. Like it's not going to get any different. Like it will always be about the change. And so I love
Yes.
that you shared that. But you also talked a little bit about your story and about that third grade teacher that really invested in you, and that's the reason you became a teacher, and how you've really grown a passion for literacy. Now that you're in the role of an assistant principal, what does that look like? How you can utilize that literacy passion in the role that you're currently in?
So I actually came in as an assistant principal, I think at the perfect time because we were making that transition from balanced literacy to structured literacy. So moving from like guided reading to structured skills-based small group reading, moving from leveled books to decodables, moving from word walls to sound walls. And so as really a leadership team with our amazing principal, spearheading it, and our instructional coaches are phenomenal. So as a leadership team, we really got together and laid down that foundation for our teachers to be able to make that change. And of course, it's, every assistant principal is going in, doing those walkthroughs, going back to their instructional coaches, working together to make sure that there's quality tier 1 instruction happening. And also, I think it's when you're in those ARDs, 504s, response to intervention RTI, I don't know if I'm missing one of those, but one of those acronyms,
There's a lot, so we're
Yeah.
always missing one. Always
Yeah.
missing one.
But you're in those meetings and you're listening about the story of these kids, and you're looking at their data, and you're making sure that there's great classroom accommodations happening. There's great testing accommodations, supplemental aids to be able to support them academically. But as an assistant principal, you're also supporting, whether it's our emergent bilingual students and you're helping them with that language acquisition, or it's even the smallest of even attendance issues and finding out, okay, what is that core issue? Sometimes it is because of academics. So there's so many ways an assistant principal to support. And yes, 100% academics is important, Todd, but it's so important to build that love of literacy. And to me, as an assistant principal, it looks like when we're in Read Across America Week, I'm taking full advantage and I'm dressing up as Fancy Nancy, Thelma the Unicorn, and I'm trying to build that love of literacy in our little scholars.
And I love that you say that because we talk about literacy so much as leaders, and sometimes that focus can be on how it's happening in the classroom. But the reality is literacy has to leave the classroom too. So what are you whether it's dressing up in costumes, celebrating a literacy day, doing all kinds of things like that, all of that matters even from a leadership perspective. And so when you think of different things you've done or different things that you've seen done on your campus, other campuses, things like that, when it comes to building up that love of literacy, what's something that you are like, oh my gosh, when this happened, or when this person did this, or when I saw this, like that was like, yes, we need more of that.
So to me, it's always when that light bulb moment happens with those kids and they click to like, oh my God, they're making that transition from, I know pre-K and second grade, you're teaching them to read, and then third grade on up, they're learning, they're reading to learn. So it's that light bulb moment for those kids of, oh my goodness, I'm a reader. And so much is unlocked in them. So to me, that is that key moment for those kids. And as an educator, it's making sure, and as an administrator, that all our teachers have that strong foundation in reading to make sure that that light bulb moment happens for those kids.
Well, and I think that you just made a really good point there. As instructional leaders, that's one of the ways that we can really support our teachers is making sure they have that foundation. What do we need to bring in? What resources do we need to provide? Where do we need to send them? Things like that. And as a leader, you've got to be on your P's and Q's about what's happening
Yeah.
in the literacy world right now. Like you've got to be educating yourself. And so I've got to ask you, since we're doing all this literacy talk, what is a great book that you have read recently that you could tell others about?
Um, so the last book I read was It Ends With Us. It was a book for pleasure.
Yeah, not what we were recommending to kids, but I love that you share that because this is what I love about this conversation is when we have these conversations as leaders and we're talking about all this education stuff. That personal side of reading is just as important as books that you're reading for professional growth. And so I love that you share that you value literacy so much that it's like, I need to read for me. So, but I know there's gonna be people listening on here going, okay, Crystal, but when did you find time to read a book for yourself? Like I can barely find time to read the PD stuff. So how do you make that time to consume literacy for you too?
So I'm going to be honest, my son is 8 years old and I barely started investing in my personal health now that he's 8. And so I will run or I'll walk on the treadmill and I'll listen to an audiobook. So
Yep, that's my go-to. Audiobooks are the best. And for so long I felt like that wasn't fair, or like that I wasn't really reading a book by reading audio. But there's so much research that discredits that. But I love audiobooks and I love
I love the smell of an authentic
yes.
book. Love it. But right now I don't have the time during maybe vacation time. I'll pull out a book, but honestly, the Monday through Friday grind, I'm doing audiobooks.
Love that. And thank you so much for sharing that. Well, okay, Crystal, as we wrap this conversation up, there's one question I always like to end on, and that is, as we've talked about all these kind of things, people have been listening or watching and learning from you, but if you're like, okay, all this stuff that I've talked about, like, I need you to make sure you heard this one thing, or I want you to hear this one thing. What is your one thing for our listeners today?
So my one thing for our listeners today is readers are leaders. And if we want to create successful members of society, we need to build that strong literacy foundation. And when you really think about it, a student can be great at computation, but if they can't read, it stops right there. So we need to make sure that we are creating students not only that know how to read, but that have that love of literacy.
Preach it louder. That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Crystal, for being our guest today. I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of the TESA Talk podcast. Remember, you can check out all the past episodes on your favorite platform or on YouTube today. We'll see you again next week with another all-new guest.